For many Lions fans, they think that the Lions have the chance to rule the NFC North and have a chance to win championships for the next couple of years. But to one ESPN analyst, their window has already closed. Say what? We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10, 5, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Lions fans, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, here's the thing, folks. When it comes to Detroit Lions fans, when it comes to the Detroit Lions, when it comes to the NFL, I would say that a lot of people have come to believe that the Lions are, in my opinion, one of the largest, best teams in the NFL. Because if you think about it, it's largely believed, it's largely thought that the Detroit Lions are now one of the best teams in the NFL. And a lot of analysts, a lot of fans from other fan bases, they've pretty much been singing the praises of the Lions having, in their opinions, a very successful offseason. Again, I say their opinions because everybody's opinion is different. But I will agree for the most part, the Lions have had a very successful, albeit, I would say, temperate offseason. They're not going out and making big splashes, but they're going out and they're making good moves. The trade for cornerback Carlton Davis, the signing of Kevin Zeitler, the signing of defensive tackle DJ Reader. All very good acquisitions. All are going to help out the Lions, and all of them, they fill some sort of a need for us, and a good need. Now, when you think about that, then you think about what happened in 2023. The Lions clearly won the NFC North running away with it. There was at no real point where the Lions were ever really in danger of losing the division or having some team in the division steal it from there near towards the end. Like, it wasn't particularly close. The Lions had gotten way out in front. They had made sure that they had secured a lead. They made sure that they held on to that lead, and they won the NFC North pretty handedly. Now, then you think about what followed after that. They not only dominated and won the NFC North Division crown, they then go into the playoffs. They win 2 playoff games. And again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. They came within a literal whisker of going to the Super Bowl. Literally, 1 quarter, and the Lions are going to the Super Bowl for the very first time in their history. So, when you think about all that, it's like, yeah, the Lions, pretty damn good team, have done a lot of good things, are continuing to do a lot of things. You would think that because of what they did last year, their ability to continue to win, their window has already opened and is going to stay open for a long time. However, though, one analyst has voiced that he believes that the Lions have already been surpassed, not only in terms of, the best team in the division, but he also thinks that the Lions are not going to be able to go back to the championship game and that they're not going to be able to have further success. Which analyst am I talking about? I'm talking about ESPN analyst Mike Greenberg. Mike Greenberg stated that he thinks that the Lions had missed their chance. He thinks that the reasoning that he gives is of a similar view to what we kind of heard out of Dan Campbell when we first lost. And that was like, hey, you know what? We missed our chance. We missed our shot. That might have been the only shot we get. That might have been the only chance we get. That's pretty much what Greenberg's reasoning is. And specifically what Greenberg is stating, because again, that's what Dan Campbell said, but obviously that's not entirely what Dan Campbell believes, because what he followed up with is like, listen, that's what I'm saying, like, hey, we might have missed our shot. Do I believe that we missed our shot? No. And I'm just paraphrasing what Campbell said. But what Greenberg is stating that kind of falls in with that similar line of thought is this. He said, how about when Buffalo lost that game with 13 seconds left against Kansas City? Well, that was a heartbreaking loss. But they'll be back. They'll clearly take them one more step. How's that worked out? Cincinnati in the Super Bowl against the Rams. Oh, look how close they've come. Look how good they've got how good their young quarterback is. Oh, they'll certainly be back. How's that worked out? Then he followed up again, and I'm reading this off a piece of paper. I'm old enough to remember Dan Marino going to the Super Bowl against Joe Montana his second year in the NFL. Set the world on fire. Oh, Marino, the first of what will unquestionably be the 5 Super Bowl appearances, never got back. You missed that chance. You missed that chance. Now, that's a long quote. But in essence, what Greenberg is trying to say is like, listen, there have been a lot of teams that people have thought, hey, you know what? They just got that close. They'll be back. They'll get another chance. They're not going to be down and out forever. They'll be back. They'll get another shot. And said the same thing about certain players. And it's like, listen, for all of the expectation, for all the thought that those players had, what Greenberg is saying is that, listen, when you have that chance to take it, you need to take it. And sometimes if you don't take it, you're not going to get another shot at it. That's what Greenberg is saying. And to a certain extent, to be fair to him, he does have a point in that, number one, in each of those situations that he's talking about, yeah, so far it's happened. The Bills have not gotten anywhere close to getting back to that point where they were a couple of years ago. The Cincinnati Bengals have had a little bit of struggles the last couple of years. And Dan Marino, he got to one Super Bowl, never got back to it, even got close to it. However, though, here's what I'm going to say about this. I think in some ways what Greenberg is doing, he's trying to fill the empty void of off-season news because it's like, listen, right now we don't really have a whole lot of, huge news stories because, well, free agency is done, the draft isn't here right now, and it's like, yeah, we're kind of, trying to fill the void here. But I'm just going to say this. While Greenberg might have a point with those things that he brought out, I would also be wanting to remind him that there are other teams, there have been other players that this has happened to, and they bucked the trend. Kind of like to say, okay, you might have these examples to say why the Lions will not do this, in your opinion. But here's my examples as to why I think the Lions will get back. Here's my first example. Peyton Manning and the Colts. Let's understand something here. I'm old enough to remember Peyton Manning being the quarterback that was always considered the freaking greatest regular season quarterback of all time. Guy could win regular season games. He could put up stats like nobody's business. But every damn time the man got into the playoffs, it seemed like it was very quickly over for him and the Colts. And again, you go back to the start of his career. He started off in the postseason very rocky. He had an 0-3 start in his first 3 playoff games. And then if you think about it, in 2004, Manning got the Colts to the championship game, and they were embarrassed against the freaking the Patriots because in that game, Peyton Manning threw 4 interceptions. The Peyton Manning got absolutely just destroyed by the Patriots in the 2004 championship game. However, 3 years after that, Peyton Manning and the Colts would again go back to the championship game, and what would they do? They would beat the very same team that beat them in 2004, the New England Patriots, 38-34, and then go on to win the Super Bowl against the Bears. So it's like, okay here, yeah, it took them 3 years to get back to the championship game, but once they got back, they won, they went to the Super Bowl, they won the Super Bowl. And then think about it. Peyton Manning would then take the Colts to another Super Bowl, albeit he lost that one. That was against the New Orleans Saints. Then he goes to the Broncos and then takes them to 2 Super Bowls, winning one and losing the other. So it's like, listen, you can't just say that because some team or some player has had a bit of a rough stretch of it or that, maybe they got this close, that that's somehow a logical reason as to why they're never going to do it again. That to me is just ridiculously stupid because it's like, you're not considering all the avenues. You're not considering all the logic that goes into how a team may or may not get back. You're just looking at one singular set of circumstances. And again, let's kind of think about it from another perspective here. Let's take a look at another star quarterback that had a hard go of it in terms of, getting to the mountaintop. John Elway and the Broncos. Dude, I'm going to say this right now. If there's anybody who is a poster child for how messed up Greenberg's logic is, it's definitely John Elway and the Broncos. Because think about this. John Elway guided the Broncos to 3 Super Bowl trips between 1987 and 1990. The only time he missed was in 1989 out of those 4 years. So 87, 88, and 1990, he gets the Broncos to 3 Super Bowls. And each time the Broncos got to those Super Bowls, they were absolutely massacred. They were quite literally blown out. First Super Bowl, they lose 55-10 against the 49ers. Second Super Bowl, they lose 42-10 against the Redskins. And the last Super Bowl, they lose 39-20 against the Giants. Think about that. In 3 Super Bowls, the Broncos and John Elway were outscored by a total of 136 points to 40. 136 points to 40. That is a 3-to-1 ratio there, folks. Think about that. And then the Broncos would then get back to the championship game in 1992. But again, they would lose to the Bills because the Bills had kind of arrived. And then how long would it take the Broncos and Elway to get back to the championship game, back to a Super Bowl? It took them 6 years after 1992, which, when they got back to the championship game, they got back to the Super Bowl, they won back-to-back Super Bowls in 1998 and 1999, and that's how John Elway ended his career, was with back-to-back Super Bowl wins. So, here's my point. Yes, there are teams that can make it to the mountaintop or almost make it, and they fall short, and then, somehow, some way, they never go back. They never find a way to get back to the mountaintop. Such teams that I can think of within the last couple of years, the Atlanta Falcons with Matt Ryan. They got all the way to the Super Bowl. They should have won the Super Bowl, and then they just completely fell apart, and they have never been the same team since. Obviously, because all the stars that they had are gone, but again, they just never were able to do it again. So yes, I understand what Greenberg is saying here. But I want to point something out here. What Greenberg is also pointing out with the names of the teams and, players that he's mentioning is that, understand this, you need to keep in perspective how those teams that never returned or players that never got back were built or handled when they got to the mountaintop or they nearly got there. Think about it. Let's go back to the Dolphins and Dan Marino. When you think about it, when Dan Marino was there with Don Shula, it was a great offensive team, and they dominated through the air. However, though, the problem is that the Dolphins never really had a complementary running game that they could pair with Dan Marino. So pretty much, it was just the Marino hour. It was like, hey, Dan Marino's going to somehow find a way to pull the offense through, and we're going to score through his arm. Then you think about the defense. It's like, yeah, did they have some decent defenses? Sure they did. But the defense was never, ever close to being on the same level as the offense with Dan Marino. So it's like, listen, you have to think about it this way. That meant that the Dolphins were only going to go as far as Marino could take them. Which, if you think about it, Marino was constantly a threat to get to the playoffs. But after the 1984 season, when he got to the Super Bowl, he never once got back. So it's like, listen, Marino could get them most of the way. But if they just had those other pieces, a running game, a better defense, they might have won one of those Super Bowls. They might have gotten a chance to go back. So think about that. Then you think about the Bills that we're talking about right now and how they got against the Kansas City Chiefs and they never got back so far. Well, let's think about it. The Bills are kind of in the same boat about how Dan Marino and the Dolphins were back in those days. Because think about it. When you think about the Bills, their main issue is that they have Josh Allen, who is a pretty prolific player. But what's his problem? His problem is he has a bad tendency for turnovers at the worst possible times, whether it's fumbles or interceptions. And it always seems to bite his team in the ass, every single time. Then you got to think about it as well. The Bills have never really had, much like Marino and the Dolphins, a complementary running game that could help out Josh Allen. Again, the offense is predicated around what Josh Allen can primarily do. The running game is not really used all that well, or if it is, it's not used that often. And then finally, think about this. While the Bills did have a pretty good defense last year, it was a pretty damn good defense, and the year before that, the problem is that they structured their roster with poor contracts. They have so much bad cap from bad contracts that they've handed out that they literally had to gut their team this offseason to get under the books, and now they've lost a lot of talent that they wasted a lot of money on, so now that's further set them back. So it's like, hey, between the fact that the offense is predicated on one player, between the fact that you're also in a division or a conference and a division that primarily features you against some of the best quarterbacks, a.k.a. Mahomes and a couple of others. And then you think about the fact that, you don't have a running game or anything else. That's going to be a lot of a problem for why the Bills have had a lot of issues getting back to nearly the mountaintop or even getting to a mountaintop. And then finally, let's think about the Bengals with Joe Burrow. Again, the biggest issue with the Bengals and Joe Burrow has been the offensive line. Because think about it. Twice since Joe Burrow has been there with the Bengals, there's been a lack of protection for their star quarterback, which to me is just ridiculous. It's like, okay, you have a star quarterback, you have a star wide receiver core because you have Jamar Chase, you have all these other guys out there. Where the hell's the offensive line production? But for whatever reason, the Bengals have not seen fit to give Joe Burrow any protection. Which is then why, oh, that's right, 2 seasons, Joe Burrow has ended the year on season-ending IR. He's been knocked out because he's been done with injury. So it's like, wait a minute. In just however many years Joe Burrow has been in the league, he's had to finish 2 of them on IR. So that right there is a big problem. If you had a better offensive line, maybe your quarterback would be able to stay on the field a lot longer. Maybe he'd play a lot better. And I'm not saying that Joe Burrow hasn't been playing well, but it's like, listen, you give a quarterback a good offensive line, it's definitely going to take their game to the next level. Then you think about this. The Bengals have not exactly had one of the best defenses in the NFL. They've had a decent to good defense a couple years here or there. But again, you have to think about it. Lackluster offensive line play. Your defense has not exactly been what I'd call championship caliber. And again, you're in the AFC, which means you have to contend with guys like Mahomes and a bunch of other quarterbacks. So you have to be able to play at that top level. And when you're banking everything on either your quarterback or something else to try and make it through, rather than having a complete team, oh yeah, you're going to have problems. That's why, for me, the final part about why Greenberg's logic, why he thinks that the Packers are the best team in the NFC North, and why he thinks the Lions are not going to get back to the mountaintop, is ridiculous. It's purely fantasy. Because think about it. 1, the Packers just fired their defensive coordinator, so they're going to have to go through implementing a new defensive scheme. Number 2, the Packers team overall is nowhere near as complete as the Lions. Number 3, on top of that, we have the better quarterback. We have the better offense. We have the better defense, in my opinion, at this point, because all the defensive players that we had that we drafted last year and the year before that, they've now got a full year or 2 years under their belt. They're about to start blossoming. They're about to start playing at a very high level. And we just added players, like I said, Carlton Davis, DJ Reader, and a bunch of others to this defense. So that's definitely going to help as well. And then finally, the last thing I have to add here is this. Take a look at Jordan Love. Jordan Love had a pretty good year for his first year as a starting quarterback in the NFL. But we also know this, that most quarterbacks, when they start their second year, they usually have a sophomore slump. They kind of regress a little bit. And that's because most opposing teams are able to study their film and are able to start finding weaknesses. So it's like, okay, here. I don't see the Packers surpassing the Lions. Did they have a good year last year? Yeah, they did. They actually kind of surpassed a lot of people's expectations. But I don't see how the Packers are going to surpass the Lions when the Lions are considered a championship contending team and the best team in the NFC North and maybe the second best team or the best team in the NFC. So for me, it's like, listen, when you think about it, the Lions clearly are the best team, and it's not even close. And I think that their championship window is definitely not closed. It's definitely open, and it's alive and well. But anyway, I just figured I'd put this episode together so that way we could talk about it because it was something that was kind of, bothering me. Something that I thought was like, this is something I should probably let go, but I'm like, no, we're going to talk about this. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about it really quickly, get it out to you, the viewer, and just want to say to everybody, thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these 3 things, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed, you not had a chance to do so, again, highly encourage you all please to subscribe, but I also encourage you all please, make sure you hit that bell notification icon at the bottom of the page, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to make sure you guys turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you never miss any more content I push out. Also encourage you all please to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. Share here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel spreads, the greater the channel grows. And with that being said, I just want to say to everybody, hope you all are having a great day. Hope you all got something that makes you happy. Hope you all got something that makes you smile. And with that, just want to say to everybody, hope you all enjoyed the content. God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.